Okay, so let's dive into this. Imagine walking into a place that's just dripping with old money and arrogance, right? Where the air feels thick with exclusivity, and you get instantly judged, dismissed just because you don't fit their idea of who belongs.
That's exactly the scene we're dropping into today. This place, Sterling Arms, this super elite gun range. Picture this crisp morning air, and this woman shows up in, worn nursing scrubs, and boom, just blatant disdain, people mocking her. It's a really stark clash right from the get-go.
It absolutely is. And what's wild is this isn't just a story about some awkward, unpleasant moment. That first humiliation, it was like lighting a fuse on something much, much bigger, something that ends with a supposedly impossible feat.
Right. We're working from excerpts of this narrative called Ghost Eye's Impossible Shot, and it lays out this whole extraordinary chain of events.
Yeah, and it gives us this amazing window into how privilege, that sense of entitlement can just slam up against real hard-earned skill. And what happens when someone who's totally underestimated decides, okay, enough, and stands up.
And not just for herself, right?
Yeah.
But for a whole set of values like service, dedication, things that should matter more than status or how much money you have.
Exactly. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really unpack this story. Pull out those key moments, the conflict, the perseverance, the transformation. What's it telling us about judgment, about what real skill actually looks like, and maybe the power of just standing up.
You think of it as your shortcut to understanding this really powerful narrative about overcoming prejudice, defying expectations.
I mean, seriously, how does someone go from being literally pushed out the door, mocked by everyone, to pulling off something that analysts later call like the most impossible shot ever? It's quite a journey.
It is, and it offers these fascinating insights into human nature.
Yeah.
It makes you question where real capability comes from.
Mm.
And it shows pretty dramatically how one moment of injustice, especially when it gets seen, can ripple out in ways you just wouldn't predict.
Okay, so let's paint that picture. Sterling Arms. This story describes it so vividly. You pull up, and the parking lot is just, wow. Expensive cars everywhere. Some even have those, tactical vanity plates trying way too hard.
Performance pieces, basically.
Uh-huh.
And then you walk inside, and it's just dripping with opulence. Marble walls, chandeliers, these fancy display cases full of custom firearms that look like they've never been fired. Status symbols, not tools.
Definitely designed to impress, maybe intimidate a little.
Yeah, the source uses phrases like wealth and an exclusive atmosphere. Sets a very specific tone.
And presiding over all this is Richard Sterling III. The story paints him as, what was it, a peacock in tactical gear.
Yeah, that captures it. Everything pristine, unused. He's even got this gold-plated pistol. And the walls aren't covered in shooting awards, but photos of him posing with celebs, politicians. It's all about projecting this image of importance. Pure performance.
And the crowd watching this, the clientele.
They're part of the show too, it seems. Wearing expensive, brand new looking tactical gear, matching polo shirts, some guys in SWAT jackets that clearly haven't seen any real action. There's a senator there, some suits, even a woman taking selfies with the bright pink AR-15, struggling with these long nails. The source really emphasizes how much of the status felt well bought.
And into the scene walks Miranda Garcia. What does the source say she looked like?
The absolute polar opposite. Worn nursing scrubs, tired face like she just came off a long shift.
Yeah.
She's got this crumpled wad of $20 bills she saved from overtime shifts. Just enough for the basic range fee. The contrast is just, bam, glaringly obvious.
See, she goes up, makes a simple request to use the range. How does Sterling handle that?
Oh, it's immediate condescension. Almost aggressive. The source says he asks, "Can I help you?" But the emphasis is just dripping with contempt. Like, what are you doing here? When she says she wants to shoot, he just laughs, loudly, echoing off the marble, designed to make her feel tiny.
And he's pretty blunt about her not fitting in, right? Doesn't hold back.
Not at all. He lays out the rules for membership. Law enforcement, military contractors, executive protection types. He dismisses her right away as a casual hobbyist, not a serious marksman. Suggests she be more comfortable downtown at the public range.
Ouch.
And then he mocks places he calls pistol pets, saying they're good for casual hobbyists or, and this is a direct quote from the source, nurses looking to play soldier.
Nurses looking to play soldier. Wow, that's incredibly insulting. And this wasn't whispered, was it? It was public.
Totally public. Other patrons turn, watch, laugh. The narrative even mentions Viktor Petrov. He's described as this ex-Spetsnaz guy, leads Sterling's private team taunting her, suggesting she's lost, looking for the bingo hall, or telling her the hospital's that way, just piling on.
And Sterling just eats it up.
Oh yeah, leans right into it. His smile turns predatory, the source says. He adds more insults, calling her an army cook, motor pool, supply clerk, basically dismissing anyone in public service, especially a nurse, as not being serious or elite. It all comes down to money. He tells her fee wouldn't even cover a box of our premium ammunition.
That's just brutal.
Says his members spend more than that on coffee. It's pure degradation, using her job and what he assumes is her lack of money as weapons.
And the senator who was there.
The source highlights that moment, too. The senator deliberately shoulders past her, ignores her completely, while Sterling is all smiles, catering to him. A very clear message about the pecking order Sterling enforces.
And then it gets physical.
It escalates, yeah. The narrative describes Sterling actually pushing her crumpled money off the counter. The bills just scatter on the floor, and nobody helps her pick them up. People just laugh. Then he puts 2 fingers on her shoulder and physically pushes her towards the door, calls security to escort this woman off the premises. Just raw public humiliation.
Just physically pushed her out. That's intense. What was Miranda's reaction? How did she handle that?
The source says she was quiet, but incredibly composed. She looks Sterling in the eye and says, "Thank you for clarifying your position. I'll remember this conversation." And she tells the security guards, "That won't be necessary. I'm leaving." Her dignity in that moment is just striking. The only sound mentioned as she walks away is the gravel crunching under her boots.
Wow. Just the gravel. You know, it makes you think, have you ever felt that? That quick judgment being sized up and dismissed based on how you look or your job or whatever. That snap decision that you just don't belong. It's a surprisingly common and really painful thing.
It really is. And what makes this story take such a turn is that Sterling, Petrov, all those people watching, they had zero idea who they'd just kicked out. Because Miranda Garcia wasn't just a nurse. She had this whole other life, this secret history. It had been 15 years since she wore the uniform, but she was. Well, she was a highly skilled military sniper known as Ghost Eye.
Ghost Eye. Okay. The narrative gives us glimpses of that past, doesn't it?
It does. Often through these old photos she kept. You know, dusty vehicles in Baghdad, her in combat gear, holding this massive Barrett 50 caliber rifle that's almost as tall as she is. The nickname Ghost Eye, the source says, started as kind of a joke.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it stuck because, quote, she never missed. Not when it counted.
And when it counted meant people's lives were on the line.
Exactly. The source highlights specific incidents, saving an entire platoon with one shot, a shot that seemed impossible beyond the rifle's effective range, heat causing mirages everywhere. The source says it was one chance, one bullet, 12 lives hanging in the balance.
And she made it.
She made it. Apparently, she made 26 more shots like that over 3 tours, shots that directly saved lives. This wasn't about winning matches. It was about getting people home.
So you have this legendary past, this incredible skill set, contrasted with her life now, working at St. Mary's Memorial.
Yeah, a busy public hospital, serves the poorest neighborhoods, treats everyone, whether they can pay or not. And the source makes it really clear she takes a lot of pride in that work, finds real purpose there.
But after that scene at Sterling Arms, that drive home must have felt different.
Oh, yeah. The source describes her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Not just angry about being rejected personally, but furious at the arrogance. The way Sterling equated cruelty with strength, expensive gear with actual skill, dismissing people based on status. And maybe the stress of her job, the night shifts, the exhaustion, living in a small apartment, it all kind of hit her. Made her wonder if leaving the military was the right call.
But she had people in her corner at the hospital.
Definitely. Her co-workers, especially another nurse named Sarah, were outraged when they heard what happened. They saw her skills every day in the ER, that calm under pressure, quick thinking, steady hands during chaos, talking down agitated patients, triaging after a shooting. They saw the precision. Sarah was even the one who suggested they should expose Sterling somehow.
And then, kind of unexpectedly, the chance arises. How does this whole thing go public?
It's almost random. The security camera footage from inside Sterling Arms somehow gets leaked online. Someone overlays captions on it. You know, things like, elite gun range owner destroys nurse for being poor, and veteran nurse humiliated.
And that just took off.
Like wildfire. Went viral almost instantly. Tens of thousands of shares, hundreds of thousands of views really quickly, comments pouring in, mostly outrage, lots of support for Miranda. But the comments that really stood out came from veterans, people who recognized something in the way she stood, her discipline, even under that verbal assault. And one specific comment catches her eye. That stance, I'd recognize it anywhere. Ghost Eye, is that you? Wheeler, 2nd Battalion.
Marcus Wheeler, her old spotter from Baghdad. For anyone listening, the spotter is like the sniper's second set of eyes, right? Calculates wind, distance, crucial stuff. A real partnership.
Exactly. And the source describes their reunion happens in the hospital parking garage. He's still built like a linebacker, military haircut, but in civvies now. And his loyalty is just immediate. Nobody treats one of mine like that, he tells her. Reminds her the brotherhood of arms never really fades.
So the video's viral. She's reconnected with her past. What's Sterling's move? Does he backtrack? Apologize?
Not a chance. Classic Sterling, according to the source. He doubles down. announces this big elite marksman challenge, $100,000 prize, pits his private SWAT team against all comers. He actually uses the controversy to promote himself and his range, boasts about how superior his facility is, how elite his team is, they show up in even fancier gear. It's just pure arrogance, turning bad press into a twisted marketing stunt.
And Marcus sees this challenge as an opportunity.
He does. He pitches it to Miranda. Frames the competition not just as a shooting match, but as a chance to make a stand. A stand against everything in the found. Sterling represents the entitlement, the disrespect for service, the whole money over merit thing. He reminds her of her legacy, how she inspired other women snipers, challenges her directly. Aren't you that person anymore? Points out she still uses those steady hands, that calm saving lives in the ER every day.
That's a powerful challenge. The source describes her decision moment quite vividly.
It does. Paints this picture of her sitting alone that night, looking at her medals, her certificates, a photo of Delta Company, those 12 soldiers she saved. Seeing Sterling's smug face online, reading the nasty comments, something just clicks, or maybe snaps. She picks up the phone, calls Marcus, and the source quotes her saying simply, "Tell me more about this competition." Next day, takes a month off from the hospital, tells her boss she needs to take care of something.
Take care of something, love it. And the veteran network kicks in, right? Word gets out.
Oh, immediately. The grapevine lights up. Ghost Eye is coming out of retirement. Offers start pouring in, people wanting to lend support, top-of-the-line gear, access to private training facilities, veterans who served with her, people who just knew the legend. But the source says she turned it all down.
Why?
Because, quote, she didn't need their help. She needed to do this her way. She had to prove that skill wasn't about the fancy rifle or the expensive scope. It was about the person using it.
Meanwhile, Marcus is doing recon on Sterling's team.
Yeah, digging into who they are, Viktor Petrov, the ex-Spetsnaz guy, and 3 other hired guns. Impressive resumes on paper, competition wins, sure. But the narrative points at a key detail.
Yeah.
No actual combat experience. Marcus acknowledges they're technically good, but you sense there's a difference between range skill and battlefield skill.
And Miranda's training. It's not some Hollywood montage with high-tech gear.
Not even close. She practices at this small, kind of rundown public range. The owner, Tommy, is a Vietnam vet. He recognizes something in her quiet intensity. The source quotes him, "Quiet ones were always the most dangerous." Her training is back to basics. Breathing, trigger control, reading the wind, no fancy gadgets. Just rebuilding that deep muscle memory, honing those instincts, reinforcing the fundamentals.
So registration day comes, back at Sterling Arms. What's that like?
Total media frenzy. Sterling's milking the publicity. Miranda rolls up in her old beat-up Honda Civic wearing plain clothes, just blends in, or tries to. Registers a participant 47, her old unit number. Even the staffer taking her registration is dismissive, tells her you're going to need it against Sterling's team. The prejudice is still right there.
And in the preliminary rounds, does she finally show her hand?
Nope. That's the brilliant part of her strategy, according to the source.
Right.
Sterling's team is out there showboating for the cameras, getting flashy scores in the basic marksmanship tests. Miranda. She does just enough to qualify. Keeps her scores deliberately mediocre. Sterling's walking around, glad-handing the media, schmoozing, passes right by her, doesn't even recognize her. He completely underestimates her, and that's exactly what she wanted. Underestimation becomes her camouflage.
Okay, so it all builds to the final day. The atmosphere must have been intense.
Electric. Clear, hot day. The crowd had tripled, bleachers set up, platforms for the media. Sterling had turned his range into a stadium, spared no expense to make it his show.
And the final challenge itself, what was it?
They announce it. 10 targets, set at distances from 100 all the way out to 1,000 yards. They move unpredictably, activated in a sequence. You get 10 rounds total. But then Sterling adds his little twist. A cruel twist, that's what it's called.
Oh boy, what was it?
Wind machines. Placed strategically to create these artificial, unpredictable gusts. His commentary over the loudspeaker frames it as separating the real operators from weekend warriors. Just more of his gatekeeping BS.
Classic Sterling. Defining real on his own terms in his rigged game. How did the others fare?
The cops did okay, hit 5 or 6 targets. The pro competition shooters, with all their specialized gear, they got 7 or 8. Sterling's own team did well. 3 of them hit 8 out of 10. Pretty good, considering the conditions.
And Petrov, the ex-Spetsnaz guy.
He steps up, all business, very methodical. His spotter's calling out wind readings, adjustments. He performs really well, nails 9 out of 10. The 10th shot just goes wide because of a sudden blast from a wind machine.
Yeah.
Crowd applauds. Sterling gets on the mic, sounds totally confident. 9 out of 10, I don't think we'll see that match today. Basically declaring victory for his team.
And then Miranda's turn.
Last shooter.
Yeah.
Every single eye is on her. The wind machines are churning. She spots Marcus and a few other vets in the crowd, just this silent nod of support. She gets into her shooting position and waits.
She waits, doesn't fire.
Doesn't fire. She just watches the targets, watches their patterns, memorizes their timing, their paths. The crowd starts murmuring. Sterling, over the loudspeaker, actually says something like, "Looks like we have a case of stage fright."
But the source says she wasn't scared at all.
No way. It says she was calculated, she was observing, processing, waiting. And then, As the target's reset for her turn, she does something completely unexpected. She stands
He
up.
stands up mid-competition.
Stands up. The crowd is confused, buzzing. And then she deliberately, calmly, ejects 9 of her 10 rounds from her rifle.
She ejects 9 bullets. What? Why?
That's what everyone must have been thinking. The little metallic clinks of those cartridges hitting the marble floor just echo in the sudden absolute silence. Sterling's commentary cuts off mid-word. Even Petrov stares, like he's suddenly realizing something huge is happening.
So this wasn't panic or giving up.
Not at all. The source frames this as extreme confidence, a tactical decision. It signaled she wasn't going to play Sterling's game, taking random shots at unpredictable targets. She was waiting for one specific opportunity, something only she saw, something that would only need 1 bullet. It's about supreme patience, observation, and total belief in her ability to make the shot when it appeared.
Okay, wow. 1 round left. So she settles back down. Targets start moving again. What happens next?
She finds that zone, that quiet place where time seems to stretch. She holds her fire, watching, waiting, until she sees it. The shot she'd been waiting for, the source calls it.
And what was it?
The source describes this incredible fleeting moment. For exactly 2.7 seconds, as these targets move through their chaotic paths, all 10 of them aligned in a perfect diagonal line across the range. And in that exact window, the wind from the machines would gust predictably, 15 miles from the southwest. It was this tiny theoretical mathematical possibility, something you might calculate but never ever actually attempt. Except Ghost Eye. Her brain does the math, windage, distance, the minuscule deflection needed for the bullet to hit the first target, then be nudged just right to hit the second, and so on. It happens almost subconsciously, years of training, instinct taking over, she squeezes the trigger. The description of the bullet's path is amazing. It hits the first target, perfectly angled, so the impact alters its trajectory just enough to nail the second, then the third, threading through all 10 targets like a needle. The sound isn't like typical gunshots. The source says it was almost musical. 10 rapid impacts, thwip, 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 paper tearing in perfect sequence.
Oh my God, 10 targets with 1 single shot.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Completely insane. And the range announcer's voice just cracks over the loudspeaker as the automated scoring system confirms it. All targets hit. 1 shot, 10 hits.
The reaction must have been pandemonium.
First, just dead silence, utter shock.
Yeah.
Then chaos. Cheering, people arguing, disbelief, cameras swinging wildly. They just saw something that shouldn't be possible.
I mean, that must have rewritten the physics books, right?
It definitely blew people's minds. The source mentions it's been analyzed like crazy since then. MIT wrote a paper on the physics Nordträger, the complex trajectory, the deflection calculations needed. The discovery challenge at a show had experts trying to replicate it. High school math teachers apparently even use it as an example.
But the story emphasizes the real reason wasn't just the math or the rifle, correct?
Exactly. While the physics were real, the reason she could do it wasn't the gear. It was, as the source puts it, about seeing what others missed. It was her incredible patience and preparation meeting opportunity. Miranda herself is quoted saying something like, "The shot isn't made when you pull the trigger. It's made in all the moments leading up to it." All that observation, the training, the waiting for that perfect fleeting moment, not forcing it.
And then she doesn't just walk off with the win, she delivers the ultimate mic drop.
Oh yeah. She stands up, faces that stunned crowd. Her voice is clear, strong, and she introduces herself. "My name is Miranda Garcia," she says. "15 years ago in Baghdad, they called me Ghost Eye." Then she looks right at Sterling. "A month ago," she continues, "I tried to pay for range time here, and Mr. Sterling told me I didn't belong. Said this place was for elite operators, not nurses playing dress-up."
You could probably hear a pin drop.
I bet. And then she lays down her message. "Well, Mr. Sterling," she says, "real operators don't need fancy gear to prove their worth. They don't need to put others down to feel important. And they certainly don't forget that skill comes from sacrifice, discipline, and service, not from the size of your bank account."
Boo. Goosebumps. The crowd reaction.
Absolute eruption. Buzzing, cameras everywhere. Veterans in the audience start shouting out, sharing stories about Ghost Eye, chanting her name. Marcus steps up, basically takes the microphone from a stunned Sterling, and reinforces Miranda's point about real excellence, dedication, service, standing up for what's right.
The judge's decision at this point is just...
total formality. No question, she won. And then, another power move. She announces she's donating the entire $100,000 prize.
Wow. To where?
To St. Mary's Memorial Hospital's pediatric wing. Because unlike some people, the source quotes her saying, "I believe in giving back to the community that supports us." Just twisting the knife into Sterling's whole philosophy.
Well, she still wasn't done with him.
Not quite. She issues a direct challenge. Looks at Sterling and says, essentially, "Open your doors. Make this range accessible to everyone who serves. Refuse, and I'll take this prize money and open a competing range right across the street." The source says that threat landed like a bomb. It wasn't just about winning, it was about forcing fundamental change.
And Sterling's empire starts crumbling pretty fast after that.
Very fast. The source describes investor panic. His partners see the disaster stock prices plummeted after the initial video. Now this PR nightmare, discrimination lawsuits are probably coming. He's alienated half his potential customer base. His personal conduct is a huge liability. His main partner, Robert Blackwood, basically tells him off. You humiliated a genuine American hero. The board forces Sterling out. And the irony, security escorts him out of the building.
Wow, karma. So what becomes of Sterling Arms?
New management steps in. A woman named Patricia Martinez, former Army colonel, her first act, symbolic and powerful, takes down the members-only sign, announces Liberty Range is now open to all.
Liberty Range.
Nice. Yeah, and they immediately bring in new policies. Free range time for veterans, discounts for first responders, medical staff, even a youth scholarship program. Complete turnaround. And Martinez reaches out to Miranda.
What about Viktor Petrov, the guy who taunted her?
There's a really interesting moment of redemption described. He actually finds Miranda later at the hospital, apologizes sincerely, says he was arrogant, disrespectful, even shares a saying, something like, the loudest dog is usually the most frightened, admitting he was that dog. And then he asks her to teach him.
That's incredible. Someone from Sterling's inner circle asking her for guidance.
It really shows the shift. And Miranda, she becomes a consultant and instructor at Liberty Range, the place that kicked her out. The whole vibe changes. Pretentious decor gone, replaced with welcoming spaces. The parking lot now has normal cars, working trucks, not just luxury vehicles. It becomes this community hub that's teaching civilians, cops training with teachers, kids learning respect.
And that plaque by the entrance
Reads, excellence has no dress code. Perfect summary. Miranda's philosophy guides the place now. Money isn't everything. Sometimes the best shot you can take is the one that helps someone else find their aim.
That one impossible shot just keeps echoing, doesn't it?
It really does. The video gets viewed over 100 million times, analyzed to death. But the source keeps circling back. The real point wasn't the physics. It was the heart, the courage, the principle, the patience.
And Sterling, what's his final chapter in this story?
The source offers a glimpse. Selling used cars in Austin at a place called Honest Rick's, trading his tactical gear for a polyester suit, his gold-plated pistol for a clipboard, tried a YouTube channel, Tactical Truth, but his last video had like 17 views, a real cautionary tale about confusing swagger with substance.
Meanwhile, Miranda just keeps on being Miranda.
Exactly. Still working her shifts at St. Mary's, saving lives day to day. The pediatric wing gets improvements from her donation. Apparently the nickname Ghost Eye even followed her to the hospital hallways, whispered with respect. And twice a week, she's teaching packed classes at Liberty Range, blending marksmanship with mindfulness.
And the ripple effect goes even further.
Yeah, there's this one powerful detail the source includes. Miranda gets a letter. It's from a young woman soldier serving in Afghanistan. This soldier faced discrimination in her unit, felt sidelined. But she saw Miranda's story, the video of the shot, heard about her standing up to Sterling. It inspired her to stick it out, to prove herself through skill. And now, she's the top marksman in her battalion.
Wow. That's incredible impact.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How our actions, especially standing up against an unfairness, can echo out and empower people we'll never even meet, defying other people's definitions of who you are or what you're worth.
So, bringing it back to you listening right now, this whole story, it definitely makes you pause. What's your impossible shot, you know?
What's that barrier someone told you that you couldn't cross? That dream that feels out of reach because maybe you don't have the right background, the right look, the right connections or money.
Think about those sterling figures in your own life. The people, or maybe the systems that try to make you feel small, inadequate, like you don't belong. This story is such a powerful reminder that you get a choice. You can internalize that judgment, or you can find your own way to prove them wrong, on your terms.
Remember Miranda, still a nurse, still drives that Honda, still living a life of service. But she also holds a world record, changed a whole community institution, and literally inspired soldiers on the other side of the world. Her strength wasn't external. It came from inside her training, her discipline, her heart, her service.
The source really leaves us with that thought, doesn't it? That the most powerful weapon isn't necessarily the tool in your hand, but what's in your heart. That courage, that discipline, that willingness to stand for something.
So maybe take your shot, whatever that looks like for you. The world might just be waiting to see what impossible thing you do next. And like the source suggests, sometimes the quietest person in the room. They're the most dangerous, not because of what they might destroy, but because of what they can build.